the person that texted us here at 402-403-9478, they did give me their name. I just didn't print it off. So I apologize. I don't. I'll try to go on my phone to find the name after I read this, because then you can respond to this. It's about Alien Point out in Ashland. So this is, I'll say your name in a second, from at 402-403-9478. Just listen to yesterday's episode on the way home from work. You guys need to have a meetup at Glacial Till to promote your new podcast. Ooh. And then take people to Alien Landing, Alien Point. She said, we drove in the area and tried to find it on Saturday, but must not have been quite in the right place. We're trying to remember from the map the author showed during his presentation. Dang, so much fun. Love you guys. All right, I'll find her name.
And just to real quickly, Rhianna Mays is in with us today.
Hi, Rhianna.
We in Ashland, they did Stir Up Days this last weekend, and Alien Landing was their theme.
That's awesome.
Because there was an abduction landing in 1967 with a police officer that was there, and he basically got driven out of town because everybody was like, he's crazy, and like they tell the pilots now, if you see it, don't mention it because you're going to get grounded. He mentioned it, and they even had logs to back up everything that he had said. He had documented everything. Nobody would believe him that it happened. And so anyway, now we've got all the release of all the documents from the government last year, right? And these things have happened. And a lot of people in high up places have seen these things, but have kept their lips sealed because they didn't want to be laughed out of town.
And they made everybody else look crazy, right? Because they didn't want to answer questions.
But the place where it landed was on my parents' property.
That's cool.
How crazy is that? Awesome. And talk about missed opportunities.
And I will say,
you could have had millions of dollars.
I know what? If I'd known about this,
T-shirts.
I was talking to Dad last night, and I was like, "How do I not know this until 2 years ago? How does this? How many times have people come to you and ask for permission to come on the property because they wanted to go see this point, this place, which they literally called it Alien Point in the World Herald." And so he says, "Oh, I don't know if you know." I don't remember. And I said, well, if it was less than 10, you'd probably have a number. So I'm thinking he's lost count, right?
If it's been 5 or 6, you'd know it was 5 or 6.
Right. And to be more specific, it's on an easement with the Lincoln Water Company, which runs through their land. That's the actual point. So there's access for Lincoln Water because Ashland is where the Lincoln Water plant is. And so that...
What did the alien want with the Lincoln water supply?
Right?
I know that's what Rhianna's thinking.
Right?
No, I was actually thinking, why did Lincoln buy that property? Like, what were they involved?
I can go one step further in that, too, because that property used to belong to my grandfather that the Lincoln water plant is on.
That's cool.
Many, many, many years ago. And they bought that property, and then they made the Lincoln water plant. Why is Lincoln's water in Ashland, right?
Yeah, good question.
I've always wondered that.
That's a
but
great
anyway,
question.
So immediately he's like, revenue stream.
Well, it's like, come on. It's like you see all these goofballs that are selling helmets and stuff out by not Studio 54, Area 51, whatever. Wait, those
are very different helmets.
They are very different helmets. So you could easily have a little tent set up and just sell stuff and promote it. I mean, right there is a retirement revenue stream. That was from Emily, by the way.
Oh my
Emily
gosh,
was her name.
get a Bigfoot sighting involved too when you are.
Well, and now Ashland's considering having an alien type event annually.
Isn't that amazing how things change? I just posted this on Facebook. People call me crazy, and I swore to God I wasn't going to come here and talk about any conspiracy theories.
You literally said that sentence.
I did say that sentence. And
I'm not going to talk about anything
X
crazy.
marks the spot, and I'm just like, oh, here we go. I don't intend to do this. However, I just ask questions because I can't
help it.
I can't help it, and I can see so much, and I feel like a lot of us that do ask questions or don't believe the narrative, we just don't have the same amount of amnesia around certain topics. But I feel like it's for your benefit because, as you've mentioned, everyone's busy and just surviving and doing their thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm over here just digging and digging and digging. And I have no social life, but I do know a whole bunch of stuff about random stuff. So, so I'm in service to humanity, really.
There you go.
So that's, I told you, I was like, I don't want to talk about conspiracy theories because people forget I'm an energy healer and actually have a business in Omaha and feed my children.
Right.
Because people come to me
right.
for help with their past.
We literally
and stuff.
like peel back just like one little bit of the onion. Generally, when we're talking to you, right? It's just one little part of what you actually do.
And I put that on my dating sites when I'm online too. So I'm very dynamic.
I'm in service to humanity.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Oh, what were we? I forgot what we were talking about.
The whole alien. I think that just the idea of their different revenue streams and different possibilities.
Sorry, ADHD is kicking.
That's okay. I'm here for you.
I do. So I posted that I'm like wait for a year and everything I say like actually comes to fruition. So like I'm a year ahead of everything. So the same thing with the alien thing. It's like nothing is crazy at this point anymore. Just give it a little bit of time. And then you really have to dig like why do they make everybody crazy? And why is everybody being silenced? And why do they not want you critically thinking or asking questions?
Exactly. And I feel so bad for him and his family. And I knew of the family, you know, and I'm just thinking, why did I not even know about this? Nobody talks about it. And I get the feeling that for some of the old timers, that the theme wasn't hugely popular. You know, it was kind of like, this is so stupid. You know, it's just one of those, God, really, here we go again. You know, and just it was whimsical. It was, you know, they can't be taken this serious.
Yeah.
But I got my T-shirt, damn it.
Right? Somebody made money on that T-shirt.
I think an every year thing is a good idea.
I told them about the Bigfoot thing.
And seriously, like, okay, so this is going to sound really weird, but the more that they gather and the more they're open to it, the more those people will have experiences. Like they will, because they're open to it, they will vibrationally attract it in. And then so I bet you if you keep doing that, like people are going to have real experiences with aliens and like confirm what's happening
at Alien
there,
Point.
So. And I mean, anybody can.
You better be ready,
right?
Better be ready with refreshments for these people.
I'm just imagining.
They actually don't eat food.
The humans.
The humans that come.
I'm not worried about the aliens that fly. I'm talking about the dirtbags that come up from Arizona that want to just shell out some money.
Yeah. Right. And you think about the thousands of people that go to the Bigfoot convention every year that are in Hastings.
Yes,
that's a real possibility.
There's big money to be had here.
They had a huge panel on Sunday and had discussions and Q&A and like I see potential.
Yeah, I actually got invited to that because I've been to a MUFON meeting at UNO. So and I've got a friend that's a MUFON researcher, and so I'm
sweet.
It's so
that's
interesting.
Cool. It is interesting.
Well,
and even
MUFON's
people
interesting,
and I love people that don't believe in it. They go to these things and they research it just to have more reason in their mind not to believe it. So it's like you're either passionate on one side or the other.
Right.
Like you don't like it or you love it.
And the people that usually end up researching just to disprove, and it's any topic, usually turn into believers, right? So I won't go into details like
they will though. You're right. Though.
They will go. They're like researching just to prove you wrong, and they're like, oh shoot, there's something here.
Right? Yeah, and then they get nervous.
The debunkers.
Yeah,
but you got to have debunkers.
Yeah, totally.
You have
just to keep everybody
keep you honest.
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep you honest. All right. So the reason that we actually wanted to talk to you today was because you had a pretty big deal happen recently, pretty big announcement that you made, and I wanted to know more about why and how this happened. And you have a book.
I do have a book. Thank you. I'm so excited. So it's on Amazon, and if you look up, so if you type in Rhianna Mays, Rhianna the singer will come up. So don't do that. But if you look up The Universe Will Figure Out the How, it's under books, and so I created a manifesting journal, and I was doing this because, it was inspired action. So I was just sitting there one day. And a friend of mine had mentioned that her and her husband were making coloring books and publishing on Amazon. And I thought, okay, the universe has asked me to write a particular book for like 2 or 3 years now. And I just get really caught up in the logistics of the how.
Right.
And the week before this client came in, I said, okay, universe, like I will write this book, but I have no idea like how we're going to do this. I need you to figure out the how. I'll write the book. And so I booked a trip to California because they finally opened up, and I'm going to go sit like under a redwood tree, and I'm going to write this book that they've been asking me to write, and it's needed, and it's a compilation of everything that I pretty much know under a certain category, and it's going to be this like handbook that people can just like a reference book, right?
Yeah, resources.
And so I was sitting there and I was like, okay, and then she dropped in how to do it, and then I was like, okay, all of a sudden this idea of a manifesting journal, everything that I teach, you know, like one class over here and a class over there, and I tell a client work on this after a session, and it was all over the place. And there's some things that I teach manifesting wise that I don't see everywhere else. So for instance, a lot of times you'll write down what you want to manifest, and it's like money or a big house or whatever, right?
Right.
But rarely do you get to look at the why. So you want to manifest money. Is my mic going out? Oh, so you want to you want to look at the whys, right? So most people want to manifest money, but why? What is it creating for you? Is it freedom? Is it safety? And then how else could those things show up for you? And so I take you through a step-by-step process in this journal, and there's blank pages of like to write your notes. And then there's even a spot of like, okay, so when you've figured out why you want this manifestation to show up, and you are going to get pinged on inspired action. And this whole book for me was inspired action. I was literally sitting there minding my own business. Bing! It just dropped in. Oh, I'm going to write a manifesting journal. And I started to do it. And within 48 hours, this thing was done. Within like 72 hours, it was published.
Wow.
I've sold like 70 books already.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome.
Dude, I just had no idea. Like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this just to like do it, right? And then I'm getting feedback where it's like exactly what people needed to work through the whole system, the whole process. Yeah, and it's very exciting for me.
Because people like to have structure and they like to have guidance, and they want to know, okay, what do I do next? How do I do this?
Yes.
And instead of feeling insecure that you're making wrong moves.
And the whole thing is laid out. And it really, I mean, I even have exercises to get you into the energy of abundance and to get you into the energy of prosperity. So exercises you can do at home on your own time to actually get into the energy so that you are a vibrational like match to it and you can attract that stuff in. I even have ways to work through blocks. So for instance, like money. So you want to manifest money, but there's going to be roadblocks in the way, stories that you've told yourself, generational things that you've heard. For instance, money is evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. All of those beliefs are going to stop that money from floating in. And I even have an exercise to work through the blocks. Yeah. So I'm really proud of this.
That's cool.
I don't care if it sells 71 books or
that's awesome.
New York Times bestseller. Yeah. I just wanted the information out there for people so that, and that's what I do in service to humanity. I want everything out there for people so that they can create the best life possible. And that's what I'm doing in part with this.
Because it is something you have to do yourself. You just can't go and read a book and somebody tells you, okay, you do A, B, and C and you're going to be rich. Like you have to do the work yourself.
You have to go through the internal process and do the work. And this is really, manifesting journal of activities to help you on your journey so that you can figure out the hows, the whys, and actually take action, right? And so, you have to do the work.
That's awesome.
And a lot of the times, and I'm really proud of this because from when I first started to wake up, and I've taken this with me like in everything I do. So and I don't know if this is the same way you've noticed in like self-help or whatever you guys love, but people will tell you what you need to do. They'll be like, you need to do this, this, and this. And you're like, yeah, but how? Like, how do I execute that in my day-to-day life?
Right, like you can get fired up going to a Tony Robbins seminar or whatever, get all pumped, and then the next day you're like, oh, that was awesome, but I don't even know how to start.
Yeah.
Where's step one? Where's step two? That's the hard part.
Exactly. And so much for me is I try to break it down and communicate things in a way that's really easy to understand, because I could get super woo-woo and just like it's over everybody's head, right? So I try to break it down and make it easy to understand, but then everything I do, I try to show you tools or the how. Right? How do you actually implement this? And this workbook, this journal is exactly that. And the great part is that you figure out what you want, why you want it, and then the how it's going to show up into your life is up to the universe, because they have infinite ways of bringing these things to you. But it's really important to figure out why you want something, because if you want freedom or safety, there could be 1,000 ways that the universe could deliver those two sensations to you, but you've never even thought about it.
Right.
But you're so focused on money. So getting really clear about why you want it also helps to open up the energy for you so that the universe can deliver in ways that you never imagined.
Because like having money sometimes is more about having security. For some people, you know, it's like not, maybe for some people it's, I want to have money so I can buy X, Y, Z. And it's really not that simple. It's like you want to have enough money so you can take care of everything else and still be able to it like splurge or have something like that. But money is more about security. Generally. It's not
is
about,
there
I want a
is
new
there
car,
something
but-
else, a different way? Like maybe somebody passes away and leaves you a home and you now suddenly have that security, right? So it's really just about being open. And so for me, like I always go back to one of the biggest manifestations I've ever made was I manifested a 10-day trip to Florida and Disney World for my kids. It was like a $10,000 trip. We paid zero. Like I paid nothing. And
How'd you do what? Sugar daddy? How'd you do that?
I do not have a sugar daddy, but
I manifest a sugar daddy, a rich sugar daddy
with no strings attached.
with nothing.
and I didn't have to have sex with anyone
right.
to make it happen. So
Love
it was
that.
the ultimate manifestation, right? But I had somebody close to me, her boyfriend loves Worlds of Fun. He has more money than he knows what to do with. And he heard that my kids wanted to go to Disney World. And I just kind of laughed at them like, not happening, kid. And he was like, we're going to take you to Disney World. And he put us up in a Hyatt on the beach on Clearwater for
That's
3
insane.
days. And then we went to we spent 6 days at Disney World. And my kids ate everything they ever wanted and did
That's
anything.
awesome.
And it was something that I never could have provided for them. But had I been focused on $10,000 vacation, it never would have shown up.
Right.
And so the fact that I was just open and just like, okay, universe, like if that's supposed to be, let it be. And I just never thought about it again. I just trusted that if my kids are going to go to Disney World, it's going to show up.
It'll show up.
And it did.
Yeah.
How long did it take? To get, like the start, when you start thinking about it to when you guys actually went?
So from the time my kids mentioned it to the time we were offered this opportunity was like 60 days. And
That's
it's
insane.
insane because I feel like the things that you're really attached to showing up, the things that you really want to show up,
Right.
there are more resistance and roadblocks in place because you want it so bad. So this process that I lay out in this journal is going to be really beneficial. But because I wasn't attached to my kids going to Disney World, it just easily flowed in because there were no roadblocks in the way, right?
You have predetermined blockage. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
there's so many reasons why this can't happen.
Yeah.
And that's what most people focus on is all the reasons why it can't happen.
Yep, exactly.
And so-
Because then if you're
so then it
focusing on
can't
it happening, then you see all the different the other avenues other than through the front door that you can make whatever you want happen.
Yeah. And a lot of times so our tiny little puny human brains, as lovely as we are, only see this tiny little what's possible, right? And so when we just throw it out to the universe, believe that we're worthy of it.
Well, we've been
And just let
conditioned,
go.
right? For so long, we've been conditioned. I mean, wanting things like that is greedy, is selfish, or like you said, and a lot of people that the money is evil thing. It's the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's it's not money's not bad. You need money. Money's not bad. But you have all these things floating around in the back of your head.
That the only way to get it is by stepping on other people, cheating or whatever, not doing stuff appropriately or whatever.
And that's why working through the process that I presented and working through those beliefs is really imperative. For me, I had to work through seeing like the Hollywood and the music industry, and they're all rich and famous, but what did they have to do to get that? And I know for a fact there's things involved that I would never choose. And so I've had to consciously unprogram my mind to believe that if I become rich, I sold my soul to the devil, right?
Because that's all you see around you.
And so
all the people that are pushed onto you, once you look at them, you're right about that. That's something that I didn't see until maybe 10 years ago. You start seeing the trade-offs, and then you start seeing people who should be doing better, but for some whatever reason, they're not allowed to get more recognition. And only the people, the studios wanted to push, or making matches, or hiding personal what do you want to say? I'm thinking of stars that didn't fit the description. Like you've got to stay single. You can't have a wife, or you can't be gay, or you can't, because we got to have
And
the
you
girls
have to look like this.
Right, exactly. And it was like they created these people, and they could also destroy them.
But those people also bought into the belief that the only way they're going to become rich and famous is this channel that they're aware of, right? Where there was so many other opportunities. I mean, there are still people out there that haven't made those choices. And so that's my purpose, is like getting people really clear about what they want, and then really just opening themselves up to the potential or the ways those things can happen.
There are people in Hollywood that don't care about that. They'll like, I'll do whatever I have to do to be rich and famous. They don't care about sacrificing those things.
And
like,
that's okay, but they're definitely earning some sort of karma, whether that shows up in this life or not. But that just, for me and my consciousness, because I know the energy, the disease that is created by shame and guilt that lives in the body, I can't make those kind of choices, because I know, I might be rich and famous, but I'm literally creating cancer in my body because I'm holding guilt in or whatever. Right. So it's there's a lot of
when you talk about those too, the people that don't care and they're willing to make those trades, first person I think of is Harvey Weinstein.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And he's paying the price.
Right, yeah, sure.
Right?
Eventually, they never live to be 90 and happy and just die, and there's always comes back to get them.
There are a lot of stories that are like that, where they took advantage of others, or they were willing to. Or
an actor or actress is willing to do what Harvey Weinstein wants them to do so they can get to a certain point.
But they're not. I don't know that they're. God, we're going to need a whole different conversation. Sure, I don't know that they're willing. I think that they're just like, well, that's what you got to do. It's just that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And really, no, that's not what you got to do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to create in the world. Is there's so many potentials and possibilities that you don't, just because that's what you've only seen, right? So that's what I'm doing. And I try to do for my kids is, your school's going to tell you this, your grandparents are going to tell you that. This is what I believe. Now I need you to just be open to like what is right, and God or the universe will show you. And just creating those, like unhinging the boxes and creating room, right? So that other truths and possibilities can come in.
And you help people with that, with your manifesting journal, which is awesome.
So I'm just fantastic. Incredibly grateful for the support so far.
We got it. Well, obviously the picture is with. That's awesome.
And we'll post the link in the description.
Yeah. Of course we will.
And it's called The Universe Will Figure Out the How, because that's really the truth. You decide what you want. You believe you're worthy, and the universe is going to show up for you and figure out the how for you.
And it's not intimidating, because it's not like this big heavy read.
No,
it's
like 99 pages.
Right. That's exactly it. That's what's like, okay, I can do this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, so now we got all that important stuff out of the way.
Oh God, here we go.
So before we started recording,
can I just remind everybody I can help you with stress too?
Yes.
Right.
And the past, and I do Reiki and Access Consciousness bars, which will unwind limiting beliefs and bad habits. So if something I did say today, you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally locked into the way I believe about this, bars would help to unwind that. So not only am I a conspiracy theorist, I can actually help you in your day-to-day.
Right. I like how she gets all that out of the way before I just
because I know you're coming at me with another
Here he comes.
Well, so before we started recording, you guys were talking about,
you brought it up.
Well, I brought it up kind of, but you guys were talking about your kids weren't feeling well. You kind of feel sinusy. You're sneezing.
I got a tickle in my nose this morning. I woke up, I'm like, what the? And I've been sneezing.
And then you brought up, Rhianna,
been spraying.
Spraying. I brought up I said it's the spraying. You said spraying, and I'm like, the chem-trails, which are
totally.
those.
Is it contrail or contrail?
So it's contrail.
Chemtrails?
It's contrail if it's from a regular airplane, and that smoke, that thing you see in the sky, the exhaust, dissipates within a couple seconds or a minute. But if it's a chemtrail, it lingers and lingers and for hours, and you see it.
And which is, I've always thought that was weird, where if it was an actual contrail, that it would still be there for an hour. It'd just be sitting up there 30,000 feet in the air, just hovering, not moving. Which is
No.
odd, but then if it's not moving, it's not falling on us.
No, it is. If you watch it, it's very dense at first, and then it becomes
Slowly.
Yeah, because it's all gently falling or
And it
going
makes
in the
sense that
wind.
that's happening. Like it's back to the whole alien thing. It's like, duh, we know there's been evidence, whatever. Duh, they're probably spraying us with whatever.
They're literally marking us X's.
That's what you said. There was an
city.
X over your house or
You can look
whatever.
up and they're
Over
like
Omaha.
X over Omaha, because heaven forbid, too many people in Omaha are waking up. We better spray them and put them back to sleep.
Oh my gosh!
Literally, but listen, it's
best.
all. I know you think I'm crazy.
I don't
but
think
it's
you're
all
crazy. I think
interwoven.
I think you're awesome. I think you're great. I don't think you're crazy. Not very crazy. I don't think you're very crazy. I think you're very creative when you think about that stuff. But it all makes sense that if it came out and you're like, I have proof, I have documents of this, it'd be like, all right, I believe you.
But it's being smothered, just like everything coming out right now, like the Arizona audit election, that is being smothered. Like it's literally being removed off every platform possible as soon as it goes up. We have to ask ourselves why, right? Like, why is that being hidden? But if people could just accept that FDA, CDC, food, and big pharma are all in bed together, right? Everything I say makes more sense. If they can make you sick by spraying you or putting stuff in the water, excuse me.
Putting stuff
Forgot
in
where
the
I was
water.
at for a minute. Put stuff in the water, and then they poison you with food. Like I just saw, for instance, like did you know food dye is illegal in Europe? Like Kraft macaroni and cheese is not orange, right? And I just saw this celery experiment with blue dye, green dye, and red dye, and they put it in a glass of water with that dye, and the red dye literally killed the celery stalk, and the other ones are like green and blue, but
And we
they're
know
not
about
dead,
the
right?
red dye. There are more restrictions on the red dye.
Yeah.
It's
because it's killing your brain, basically. Let's just say that. But like, so if they put all this in our food and then Big Pharma is like, oh, but we've got the solution for you. They're all working together.
Because as I've always said,
and we've never been sicker.
You create the problem, you sell the cure.
Yes,
That's been for
and we
how
have
long?
talked about
Since,
this.
Yeah, it
since
totally makes
snake oil salesmen with their horse and buggy
And it makes sense.
would create the problem and then sell you the cure.
Yeah.
And they would either get people sick and then they would have a solution to get them well and they could sell it to them. And so it was surreptitiously causing illness or surreptitiously causing other, I don't know, less desirable effects and then telling people, I can fix that for you.
Yeah.
And it costs $1.
Yeah, it makes sense.
is it.
So,
Yeah.
and just like even right now, we're what, like, I don't know, 20 months into this whole pandemic, right? And we're still not talking
Did you say
about.
plandemic?
I did.
Thought she said.
Well, there is. Never mind.
I
There's
know.
evidence.
Save it for let's take a dive.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is we're still not talking about how to actually build an immune system, because that would solve the problem and people wouldn't be sick
I
anymore.
see more and more people talking about
Like
it.
if we
though.
just took vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc, and then now they're saying like pine needle tea or even dandelion tea. I mean, why do you think they make us spray dandelions and call it a weed? Because that would cure heart disease.
I've watched a whole thing
There's
about dandelions.
evidence and information out there, but they don't want you to have that information, and they'll just call me crazy because they want you to be sick because they have the solution.
Right.
And if I could just get people to, even
Well,
the energy healing,
that's
even
where-
energy, it's weird because it doesn't
Well, what I
involve
don't
pharmaceuticals.
And they
you
can't
mentioned,
control it.
you guys both mentioned that when something like some information goes out on social media or wherever it goes, and it just gets sponged
Buried.
off, like completely buried. But yet on the other hand, Twitter, Facebook, where Instagram, I don't know who would all, you can go on there and you can find child porn, you can find terrorist videos, you got all that stuff.
You can find
that all
porn
makes,
stars.
Right.
You can find,
that makes the cut, but they talk about child trafficking or they talk about COVID or whatever, and the information is just gone.
And at this point, I think there's enough people that realize what's going on, and they ask, like, well, why is it? I know people have told me if they're censoring it, I'm going to believe it because I wonder why they're censoring it, and I'll immediately start researching it, which opens up all these doors, right?
and then
So-
why they don't censor the stuff that's so obvious, like
Right.
you're talking about.
Well,
Because
people have been for so long about child sex trafficking, and there's all over the
still
place
there.
on Twitter, and it's still there.
it's still there.
Because that still creates, I mean, if you think the ultimate agenda is to make people sick and to create fear in them so they're easily controlled. What those things that you make sense feed into the re-traumatizing of people. And this cycle just keeps going and going and going. And so that's why I fight so hard to just even if I could get one person just look and think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should add this or whatever.
Yeah, the first time I ever looked up a hashtag on Twitter, particular hashtags, I was scared to hit enter. Like I put it in the search bar and I'm like, do I want to see this? Because if this is true, this is going to be awful. And it was. And I'm like, now I've seen it. And as they say, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know it's there. And the same way just this week, they had an article about there was a porn star that went to the, what's it called? TPUSA, the Turning Point USA. Republicans, I don't know if you call them Republicans or conservatives. I'm not sure what they call themselves. But anyway, it's a young people's group. And she was there. She bought tickets. She had a pass to go there. And then they kicked her out because she was using her stage name.
Oh.
Which was what?
It's not awful.
Okay.
But it's her stage name.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to give her publicity or not.
Well, there's only, we have 11 people that listen. Right? We're not really getting publicity.
I'm just going to say.
Well.
I'm going to say, but Brandy Love.
Okay. So that's not a bad name. It's not like it's Janet Jugs or anything like that. That's what I was thinking. They kicked her out because of her name.
No, but somebody saw her name and she was using her stage name on her lanyard. And so then somebody else realized who she was, and then she got kicked out. And so there was a big blow up on social media in a couple of areas about that. And I'm like, what the heck? And so you look her up. Whoa, boy.
Well, how about the people that called her out knowing who she was? Obviously, like, have you been on her site before?
How do you know?
Yeah, how do you know who
Brandy
she is?
Love?
I would have. She could walk in this room, and if she would have, well, maybe
you'd have
we would know.
You'd have to make a good guess.
You could
educated guess.
Educated guess what she does.
But maybe she's just a normal person, and that's, I don't want to judge anybody's
right.
And she should be able to go if she wanted to.
She should be able to go.
She had her pants on,
yes,
and she was at the event and bought a ticket.
And dressed appropriately.
So the last thing I want to say, can I just
do one more? Pause, just asterisk. Hold on, because I want before you. The last thing you want to say, because it's important. I want you to legitimize everything. But you guys had somehow turned this into something locally with the storm and the trees falling down, which is what I wanted. That's
where you wanted to go with that?
That's where I wanted to go with this whole thing is because I know both of you guys, and when you guys have a little idea, you lean back and you're like, well, so we were talking about the chem-trails or whatever, and then you like, well, that brings me to all these trees that fell down in the storm last weekend. Mm-hmm. How on earth is that a conspiracy theory?
So, and JT, JT, you even mentioned you saw, and Pat called it the invisible saw, but you saw, and I saw healthy, 85-year-old trees, fine, just uprooted. But you said what?
I don't think
sawed at the grass.
There was one that was tipped over, and literally it looked like, because if there's 80 foot above the ground, there's 80 foot below the ground. That's how trees grow, right? Their root system is comparable to their branches, and it tipped over, and it looked like it'd just been shaved off at the ground because it didn't pull up all these roots. You didn't have roots sticking everywhere. It was just like it just tipped over. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how does that even happen? It should tear up so much ground with it. And you saw a couple where it did.
Yeah.
And granted, I didn't see all the pictures, but of the pictures I saw, that was the one that really caught my eye because I was like, what the heck happened
And
there?
I just related it to, they've been spraying us for so long. I mean, you're seeing deer with tumors on them, and all the trees are being impacted too. And so I believe that I don't believe that storm was natural. I believe it was HARP created just to create pain and suffering and trauma. It's the whole, everything that happens, it always goes back to, if we can just keep them in fear and in survival mode, we will be able to more easily control them. And so a storm of that magnitude, I mean, what did everybody do for 2 days? They were cleaning up, and they were without electricity, some of us for
4 or 5 days, 6 days, yeah.
And so I believe that damage to the trees goes back to the chemtrails. I mean, we've never been sicker. People are full of parasites and metal. And a lot of that is coming from the spraying and their food sources. So
They're there. See,
It didn't actually
so-
sound as
You feel
crazy
better?
as I thought it was going to be. Dang it.
there is no invisible saw. I don't
Okay.
know
No,
about that,
I know.
but it's related. Like there's something related to just continuing the cycle of trauma and damage, and keeping everybody in control and in fear. And the last thing I want to say is that there's a lot of intuitives, but I'm feeling something really big coming soon, and I've talked about this too. The apocalypse is really just information coming, right? It's not the destruction of the world, and it is the destruction of the old ways, the old world. But you're seeing it's becoming more and more obvious. So like the French president just announced that you can't go into a supermarket or get on a train without the vaccine. And that
crazy.
very much sounds like the mark of the beast, even
Yeah.
though I'm not religious.
no.
It very much sounds like the mark of the beast. And then France protested in huge droves, and he had to back off of it. Yeah. There's protests in Cuba, South America. There's 5 presidents, including Haiti's president, that have said we will not bring the vaccine in, and all 5 have been assassinated since April. And so the agendas are becoming more and more obvious, and the propaganda has never been. If something is good for you, it wouldn't need this much propaganda and this much peer pressure. And the fact that the information like take vitamin C, take zinc is being called a conspiracy theory or hidden just makes me crazy, because people don't have the information that they need to make informed consent.
I've seen a lot of people talking about that, and there are some doctors out there that are absolutely proponents of that, and you see people posting about that my doctor said, if I do this, this, and this, I have a strong immune system.
And those doctors are being called like and they're losing their medical license, and there's lawyers going after fraud, and they're losing their law license, and it's just anybody that doesn't line up with the agenda is being assassinated or publicly
like the vaccine
taken
passport.
out.
The thing that bothers me the most about that is that you don't have to have proof that you've had the shots or had the literal vaccines for rubella, for measles, for tuberculosis, all those things that are extremely deadly. You don't have to prove you had those. You only have to prove you had this one.
Well, and it's I'm vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated, but I'm not inoculated with an experimental drug. And if people choose that, great. However, I'm pissed about it because I don't think people really have been given the real statistics. They haven't been given the ingredients and what it actually does. Like according to VAERS, 99,000 people have died already. And traditionally and scientifically, prior to this whole mess, VAERS said only 1% of everything that happens is actually reported. So I just think for me, it's just continue to ask questions, continue to follow your intuition, what's right for you, and just be open to other possibilities.
There you go.
Nice. Okay.
I like that.
So the link for your book is in the description of our podcast.
Yes.
And where else can people find you?
Rhiannamaze.com.
Easy enough.
Perfect.
You.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate being
Love having you in. You can text us like Emily did and many others, 402-403-9478, or it's Pat and JT on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Pat and JT Podcast, a Huda Media Production.